I'd always been fascinated by unsolved mysteries, but nothing intrigued me more than the lost colony of Roanoke. A settlement of over 100 people vanished without a trace in the late 16th century, leaving behind nothing but a single, cryptic word carved into a tree, Croatoan. No bodies, no evidence, no explanation. Historians had debated it for centuries, but no one had ever found a definitive answer. So when I got the opportunity to visit Roanoke as part of my research for an upcoming book, I couldn't resist. It was a small, eerie island off the coast of North Carolina, with dense forests and an oppressive silence that seemed unnatural. The tour guide gave us the usual rundown of the legend, walking us through a reconstructed version of the original colony. But I wasn't interested in the tourist-friendly version of history. I wanted to explore the real, untouched parts of the island. On the second day of my trip, I decided to wander beyond the designated areas, deeper into the woods. The air felt different there, thicker, colder, almost as if it was pressing down on me. The trees were gnarled and ancient, their bark scarred with strange, almost deliberate markings. It was there, beneath the twisted roots of a particularly massive oak tree, that I saw something jutting out of the dirt. At first I thought it was a piece of rotted wood, but as I dug with my hands, I realized it was something else, a book. The leather cover was cracked and stiff with age, its surface marked with deep scratches that looked almost like claw marks. The pages were yellowed, brittle, and as I flipped through them, I saw messy, frantic handwriting in faded ink. Some of it was in English, some in Latin, and others in a language I didn't recognize at all. But what struck me most was that the handwriting changed, as if it had been written by different people over different periods of time. One passage, dated 1587, stood out immediately. They come with the night. Shadows move without men, eyes in the dark, watching, waiting. We pray to God, but he does not answer. We are not alone here. I felt an involuntary shiver creep up my spine. I turned to another entry, this one from 1590, the year the colony vanished. The dire of forest whispers. The children wake screaming, "We must leave, but where can we go?" The shadows have found us. I see them at the edge of the trees. They have no faces, no eyes, just mouths, grinning in the dark. If you find this, do not look for us, do not let them see you. A gust of wind rushed through the trees, cold and sharp, carrying the faintest scent of something rotting. The air was suddenly heavy, charged, as if a storm was about to break. I felt watched, like something was just beyond my field of vision, waiting. I snapped the book shut and stuffed it into my bag, my pulse quickening. I needed to leave. As I retraced my steps toward the tourist area, the wind grew stronger, whispering through the branches in a voice that almost sounded like my name. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down I knew better. That night, I couldn't sleep. The book lay on the small wooden desk in my motel room, its presence feeling heavier than it should. The words from the diary replayed in my mind. Do not look for us. Do not let them see you. Each time I closed my eyes, I imagined the shadows stretching between the trees, those unseen figures the colonists had feared. I told myself it was just a story, superstition. But deep inside, I wasn't so sure. Sometime past midnight, I gave up on sleep and opened the diary again. I carefully turned the fragile pages, trying to decipher the erratic handwriting. The later entries grew more desperate, the ink smudged as if written in haste. One page near the back of the book was stained with what looked like dark brown. Fingerprints, dried blood. The entry read, "They are not men. They take shapes, but they are not of this world. We thought them spirits at first. Now we know better. They are hungry. They whisper our names. They mimic our voices. When you hear your own voice calling to you from the woods, do not answer." I swallowed hard. I didn't want to believe it, but something about the words felt true. As I turned another page, my phone vibrated against the wooden nightstand. The sudden noise made me jump. Who would be calling me at this hour? I reached for the phone and checked the screen. No caller ID. The number was just a blank string of digits. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I hesitated, then slowly pressed answer. For a few seconds there was nothing but silence. Then I heard my own voice. Hello. The voice was identical to mine, but it wasn't an echo. It sounded wrong, slightly off, as if someone were imitating me, but didn't fully understand how human speech worked. Hello, it repeated. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Then, in a distorted whisper, it said, "You should not have taken the book." The call ended. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My reflection in the darkened screen looked different for a split second, like its mouth was still moving. A heavy silence filled the room, pressing down on me. I knew I needed to leave, to get as far away from Roanoke as possible. But something told me it was already too late. Outside, in the dense forest beyond my window, I heard my own voice calling my name. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The motel room felt suffocating, the air thick with something unseen but present. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, my phone still clutched in my hand, the screen now dark. My mind kept replaying that voice, my voice. The perfect imitation, the way it had whispered that I shouldn't have taken the book. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but underneath it I could swear I heard something else. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, close. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. At some point the fear turned to exhaustion, and I must have dozed off because I woke to the sharp sound of tapping. It was coming from the window. My heart pounded as I slowly turned my head. The curtains were drawn, but the tapping continued, light, almost polite, like someone was trying not to wake me but needed to be let in. I forced myself to move, inching toward the window. My breath came shallow as I reached for the curtain. My fingers trembling, I pulled it back just enough to peek outside. The parking lot was empty, no people, no movement, just my rental car sitting under the flickering glow of the old motel sign. But something was wrong. There were footprints in the dirt outside my window, bare footprints. They led from the tree line to the window, then stopped. No return prints, no sign of where the person had gone. I scanned the tree line, my breath hitching. That's when I saw them. Shapes in the woods. They weren't moving. Not yet. Just standing there, watching. Their figures were indistinct, blending into the shadows, as if they were part of the darkness itself. Then one of them took a step forward. I stumbled back from the window, my pulse hammering. The motel room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. I grabbed the diary from the desk, clutching it like some kind of shield. I had to get out of here. Fumbling with my keys, I threw on my jacket and shoved my things into my bag. I had no plan, just run. Get out of Roanoke, get as far away from this cursed place as possible. I grabbed the door handle, my fingers slick with sweat, but just as I twisted the knob, I heard my voice from the other side of the door. Let me in. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed to run, to hide, to do anything but open that door. I know you're in there. The voice was identical to mine, the same pitch, the same tone, but there was something hollow about it, something wrong. I stepped back, pressing myself against the opposite wall. My mind raced. What did the diary say? They mimic our voices. When you hear your own voice calling to you from the woods, do not answer. The handle started to turn. I wasn't alone in that motel anymore. The doorknob twisted slowly, metal groaning as if someone or something was testing it. My breath hitched. I pressed my back against the far wall, gripping the diary so tightly that my knuckles ached. I know you're in there, the voice whispered. Again, my voice. It was perfect. The cadence, the breath, the slight tremor that always crept into my words when I was nervous. But there was something else, a hollowness, like an echo in an empty room. The door creaked open a fraction of an inch. I didn't move. A single eye appeared in the gap, a glassy, inhuman black eye. I bit down on my own hand to keep from screaming. The door stopped moving. Silence stretched between us. Then, a soft, wet chuckle. "You shouldn't have taken the book." The thing behind the door whispered it with glee, as if it was savoring the moment, the fear rolling off me in waves. I snapped into motion. Run. Now. Darting across the room, I grabbed my car keys and yanked open the window. The screen popped out with a groan, and I hauled myself through, landing hard on the gravel outside. My ankle twisted beneath me, sending a jolt of pain up my leg, but I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet and bolted for my car. The parking lot was deserted, the wind roaring through the trees. I fumbled with the keys, my hands slick with sweat. Click. I threw the door open and slammed myself inside, jabbing the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. That's when I looked up. Something was standing in front of my car. A figure, tall and thin, barely more than a shadow against the flickering neon of the motel sign. It had my face. But it wasn't right. Its mouth stretched just a little too wide. Its skin looked waxy, stretched too thin over its bones, and its eyes, completely black, empty voids. It took a step forward. I slammed the car into reverse, tires squealing as I shot backward. Gravel sprayed up, hitting the undercarriage with sharp pings. The thing moved with me, its head tilting, its mouth curling into a grin that made bile rise in my throat. I shifted into drive and floored it. The creature didn't move out of the way. It just stood there, smiling, as my car hurtled toward it. For a split second, I thought I was going to hit it. But then it vanished, gone. No impact, no sound. I whipped my head around, my pulse hammering. Nothing, just an empty lot behind me. The dark forest beyond. But I knew it wasn't gone. I sped out of the lot, tires screeching as I tore down the road, pushing past the speed limit. I needed to get out of Roanoke. I needed to destroy this diary, and most of all, I needed to make sure that thing didn't follow me home. The road stretched ahead of me, dark and empty, swallowed by towering trees that blurred past in my peripheral vision. My hands were white-knuckled around the steering wheel, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror. Nothing, just the endless road behind me. But I knew better. I had seen it disappear. I had heard my own voice whispering from the other side of that door. And the diary, the damn diary, was still sitting on the passenger seat. I should have tossed it out, burned it. But some deep, gnawing instinct told me that wouldn't be enough. I needed to understand. I needed to know what it was. I reached for the book with shaking fingers, flipping it open to the last few entries. The ink was smeared, the pages brittle, like they had been left in the rain. The darkness has taken another. We see them in the trees now, figures with our faces, speaking in our voices. They are not us. They are watching, waiting. A chill spidered down my spine. Once you see them, you cannot leave. They become you. They replace you. My stomach turned. To Bice, I slammed the book shut. No, that wasn't possible. I was leaving. I was driving away right now. I just had to get to the mainland and this nightmare would be over. Then the headlights flickered, my stomach dropped. The radio crackled to life, though I hadn't touched it, static, thick and warbling. Then a voice, my voice. You shouldn't have left. I jerked the wheel, nearly swerving off the road. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the hum of the tires against the pavement. I had to keep going. I was almost at the bridge. I could see the water now, stretching into the horizon, the faint glow of mainland lights in the distance. I pressed, my foot harder against the gas pedal, forcing the car forward. Then something stepped onto the road. I barely had time to react. My own reflection stood there, illuminated by the glow of my headlights, its head tilted in that unnatural, predatory way, a grin carved too wide across its face. I screamed, I slammed the brakes, too late. The car hit it, or should have. The moment of impact never came. Instead, the figure melted into the darkness, vanishing like smoke. My car spun out, tires skidding. On the wet pavement, I lost control. The guardrail rushed toward me, a sickening crunch of metal. Then, nothing. I woke up to silence. The car was still. The engine was dead. I was sitting in the driver's seat, my hands limp in my lap. My head throbbed. I turned my gaze slowly toward the road, toward the bridge. It wasn't there. My stomach twisted into a knot. Instead of the bridge leading to the mainland, the road stretched back toward Roanoke, like I had never left. No, this wasn't happening. I grabbed the door handle, shoving it open. The cool night air hit my face, thick with the scent of damp earth and salt. I turned and froze. Standing a few feet away, watching me, was me. The figure from the road. Same clothes, same hair, same face. But its skin was too pale. Its eyes, black, empty voids, were fixed on me. It smiled, lips parting to reveal teeth that were just a little too sharp. "You shouldn't have left," it whispered. I staggered backward. My foot caught on something. I looked down. The diary lay at my feet, open to the final entry. Once you see them, you cannot leave. They become you. They replace you. A cold hand gripped my wrist. I barely had time to scream before the world went dark. They found my car the next morning, abandoned at the edge of the island. The authorities searched for me. They found nothing. No sign of a body, no tracks leading away from the wreck. Just an old tattered diary on the driver's seat. And when they checked the motel's security footage from the night before, they saw me walk out, but I never came back.